Good evening from the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your forecaster Jeff Monk looking at the planning outlook on the mountains over this weekend and a peep into the coming week. It's actually going to be a good deal drier. Rainfall on many western mountains has been fairly considerable over the last week or two. Underfoot, it's very much wetter now after the very dry conditions of May, but we are going to see a return to those dry conditions. Except, that is, until into the weekend over the West and Northwest Highlands. However, it is not all good news because for much, perhaps the whole weekend in some areas, there will be very extensive low cloud focused on the western mountains, and indeed, if you're on even lower hills close to the west coast, even some coastal cliffs, they will at times be bathed in sea fog. I've put back patches of drizzly rain. For the most part, that is going to be very fine drizzle on some of the coastal upslopes, but a little bit wetter to begin with over western Scotland. I've got some isobar charts. On Friday, we have westerly winds, these charts courtesy of meteoseal.fr. A fairly brisk westerly winds, these isobars are 1 millibar intervals, perhaps rather more than what we're used to seeing, but it will be a windy day, particularly across southern and central Scotland down into northern England, and it's one of those situations, and this is true for into the weekend as well, where the strongest winds not necessarily on highest tops, some quite strong gusts blowing through coals, blowing through passes, even down slope to the east of some major ridges. Nevertheless, on average, the winds will still increase with height. What this doesn't show is that there will be very extensive low cloud coming in, shrouding particularly western mountains. That is still there on Saturday, and it may still be there on Sunday as well. However, if I paste in a cold front for Sunday, on some of the forecast models it's sort of in here, whereas in other models it's a lot further back. That cold front is not important through rain, but it is important because it is the northern boundary of the very low cloud. So even on Sunday, very likely all mountains near the Irish Sea will be bathed in that very low cloud, probably breaking over East Cumbria, East Wales to give a very warm day, but it's possible that the low cloud will extend right up across the West Highlands, probably percolating eastwards, perhaps to the Oak Hills as well, depending on the precise wind direction, with only the Northwest Highlands blustery, but losing the lowest of the cloud. So by the time we get to Sunday, although it's a predominantly dry picture, there is some uncertainty on western mountains, particularly in the north. But just to emphasise, the further east you go, the less that low cloud will penetrate. Moving on now into early next week. The majority, but not all, of the forecast models then bring a relatively chilly but substantially dry west or northwesterly wind in. They don't all. Again, if I'm to sort of paste on one or two of the differences, one or two of the forecast models actually have a fairly gentle area of high pressure, in other words, few isobars out to the east, and the very light east to southeasterly winds, more southerly across Scotland, will actually mean that the low cloud isn't coming in from the west anymore, but all cloud breaks up, and it's a fine, very warm day almost anywhere or everywhere. In fact, the biggest risk late on in the day is of an isolated burst of heavy rain or thunderstorm. So early next week, it's looking settled, it's looking dry, but there is uncertainty at the temperature levels and probably the amount of cloudiness, particularly in Scotland, the amount of windiness in Scotland, whether it's a westerly or just a light southerly. If we move on, by about the middle of next week, if not earlier, it looks as if we will have high pressure close to the country. Now, I am aware that some of these forecast models have been a little bit optimistic with high pressure recently, so it may not be quite as good as this, but the overall message is that rainfall will continue very low until at least the middle of next week, and it may well be fine, warm and sunny, though perhaps not quite as good as that. So a very settled period. I'm just going to look very quickly at a few rainfall charts just to remind us. On Friday, in this very warm air, this rain, which is less than a millimetre over a few hours, is over the upslopes in West Wales, and that's really fine drizzle. It's there over the upslopes of Cumbria, a little bit more so over the southern uplands, and the warm front bringing a short period, perhaps rain on and off more definitely across the west and northwest Highlands as this warm front comes in during Friday. A little bit of uncertainty on the precise shape. By the time we move into the weekend on Saturday, still just a shadow of that drizzle over West Wales, perhaps over the central Pennines into the Lake District, and still it's there, that footprint of drizzle over the west and northwest Highlands. And then possibly still there on Sunday, but really the precise detail on Sunday is going to be dependent on where the front is. But it will be weak in terms of rainfall, there will be very little. Finally, if you can reorientate yourself for Sunday, this is an attempt to show cloud layers. Think only about the red. Look at only the red. That is the low cloud. This is assuming that the cold front is somewhere near the Scottish borders and shows to the south low cloud plastering Wales, plastering all the mountains close to the Irish Sea, but breaking up, for example, toward the Eden Valley in northeast Cumbria. Northeastern fells may well lose the low cloud. Easternmost mountains in Wales may lose the low cloud. And indeed, as the day goes on, because this is a morning picture, the cloud may well break further west. But broadly, the further east you are, the sunnier it'll be on Friday, Saturday, and particularly Sunday, when I think the sunshine will be more widespread. And it may be that by Sunday we lose a lot of a low cloud across Scotland. So do enjoy the next week or so on the mountains.